I don't know how this happened, but somehow people stopped knowing how to do showers well. And this happened almost every shower that I did. No, every shower that I was a supervisor for was not done to our current standard.
Welcome to the Fine Homebuilding Pro Talk podcast, our regular discussion with building industry professionals. This is Senior Editor Patrick McComb. Today I'm joined by Doug Horgan, Vice President of Best Practices for BOWA, a design builder modeling firm in McLean and Middleburg, Virginia. You can find the Fine Homebuilding Pro Talk podcast and the original Fine Homebuilding podcast at finehomebuilding.com/podcast. You can leave feedback and ask questions there too. Doug, thanks so much for being here. It's a pleasure to see you again.
Nice to see you too. And it's a real honor. I think I'm going to give you a list of like 15 people that should have been on before me.
We'll talk about that after the show. So you and I met, I don't know, it was like 2 or 3 years ago now when I came to DC to do a photo shoot on your job site protection article, which was a fantastic feature, by the way.
Well, thanks. Yeah, it was good to, it was always I learned so much from Fine Homebuilding, and it was really great to get to contribute back.
I'll put that article up on our podcast page so folks can check it out. But there was a lot to you shared a lot about how you protect your clients' homes. It was really a good article.
It's one of the great things about working here is we get to try a lot of things and sort through which ones work the best.
Everyone healthy at the company? Has the pandemic affected how you guys do business?
The pandemic has definitely affected how we do things. Fortunately, it's mostly been good. We've had a couple of close calls and a couple of folks who did get COVID, but they're all fine now. So, crossing our fingers. It seems like we're not out of the woods by a long shot, but so far so good.
I agree. So are your workers practicing social distancing and doing all the things the rest of us are doing? It's hard on a job site, right?
It's very challenging on the job site. I find it challenging. There's a lot of folks who just want to stand closer than 6 feet to you when they're talking. So I think we're doing our best as we can with masks. We're doing a lot with keeping air moving through our job sites. I mean, we're connected with indoor air quality experts who've been warning us for a long time that the virus actually transmits farther than 6 feet. It floats around in the air. So we've been trying to address that for months. And I think we're doing a reasonable job with it. As I said, it doesn't seem like anyone's been infected on our jobs, and we just hope it continues that way.
So you guys work in Maryland and Virginia mostly, correct?
No, DC actually has our most jobs right now. So we work in all 3 jurisdictions.
And did those areas handle the necessity of workers differently? Were you able to work some places but not others?
No, at the end of the day, they all decided that ongoing construction projects were essential work. So there was a week when there was a lot of confusion, and we actually shut the whole company down for one day because a bunch of pronouncements had come out and they weren't that clear, but it all got sorted out. So we were more or less able to continue working, unlike in a lot of places.
Mm. And have you guys been getting a lot of calls, like I hear other remodeling firms, of people who want to change their life because they're home all the time now?
There's a fair amount of that, absolutely. Yeah, particularly folks who need offices and want better amenities at their house if they're going to be there all the time.
Do you think this is going to continue after the pandemic subsides?
I have no earthly idea. I know the trend was definitely towards urban living. We've had multiple clients who built giant houses in the far suburbs move to condos or townhouses downtown, and we've remodeled those for them. So I couldn't tell you what the collective of everyone's going to decide. My guess is that will continue because living in the city has a lot of things going for it.
Mm. Can you tell me what you do for BOWA, and can you tell me how you got into residential construction?
Sure. Neither of those is a super short answer, but I have the best job ever. I get to spend my days trying to help us build well and build things that won't fail. And it's been a terrific job. What I actually do most of the time, I visit job sites. I work with newer project managers and help train carpenters to do things the way that we've learned won't fail. I work with subcontractors, especially newer crews who or people working on risky things like low slope roofs or large showers, stuff like that. So it's all just sharing what we've learned over the years about what's succeeded and what's failed. So it's that's what I do every day. And then the way I got there is, this is my summer job after college. I always wanted to get into construction. I lived in Vermont. There were not many jobs. The closest I came was painting houses, which I loved. But I took the opportunity to come down to the DC area where there were a lot of jobs. Looked in the classifieds in the newspaper. So this was a while ago. Started out digging ditches, got huge blisters on my hands, and then by the time 10 years had gone by, I learned a thing or two. I was running fairly large jobs. They actually got to be so big that I couldn't use my tools very much. And when we decided that it was time to start a handy person and warranty group, I volunteered, and that started me off on 10 years of learning about everything that fails on, the parts of the house we didn't remodel, and even on our own work. So that was really a great learning opportunity. And in the middle of that, we started doing some somewhat rudimentary training for folks in the company, just bringing in our painter and talking about what will work and what won't work, what temperature things need to be, and how to schedule them, and little things like that. Concrete, how to handle the work on site with the concrete folks. That we were learning, that was helping a lot with quality. So as that went along, it seemed like that was a more valuable place for me. Our handy person and warranty group had grown. I probably had maxed out as a manager. It was stressful for me and probably for people working for me. So we pushed me more into this role that I have now, where it's about preventing issues in the first place. And
do you know of any other company that has a similar position? It seems kind of exceptional to me.
I mean, I think every company has people who perform this role. I just don't think they have the opportunity to spend as much time on it as I do. I mean, we have people on every job site every day who are watching out for quality, and their managers are watching out for them watching out. So that's how it usually is with other companies. I just try to help as much as I can with that whole process for everyone, and I think it makes it easier. Running a project is a lot of work. Without having to figure out some weird detail or watch a new subcontractor for an hour and a half. So it can be helpful for me to do that.
Do you feel like there's enough of you to go around to keep tabs on everything?
Most of the time, but not always. Yeah. And I mean, I'm not trying to do this myself. I'm trying to help the other people do it. Yeah. And
do they contact you when they have something that comes up on the job site that they need to work out? Is that part of it too?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yes. Everyone has me on speed dial, and I get a lot of phone calls every week. So that's very helpful. But there's other things, I've watched the jobs as they're coming along. The managers know, hey, this job has a low slope roof. Let's make sure Doug's there for that. This job has a weird basement condition, that sort of thing.
And is that stuff identified, ahead of construction, or is that kind of evolve as it's going along?
It's a mix. Yeah, we don't have a checklist or anything. I mean, a lot of I know there's a lot of companies try to set up so that there's a like a 3-ring binder that tells you everything to do, but we kind of work a different way, where it's more about everyone understanding that everyone we hire is already dedicated to doing a great job, and we're just trying to help them have the resources to do it. So it's more about each person having the autonomy to bring in resources when they need them on their jobs.
Can you talk a little bit about BOWA? What kind of projects are your sweet spot, and how many employees do you have, and a loose breakdown of what they all do there?
Sure. So we have 70 something people.
That is a really big remodeling firm, Doug.
Yeah. There's bigger, but we're pretty big. Yeah. And we do large renovations and custom homes, and it's sort of from the low 6 figures up, we've done jobs that are over $10 million. So we actually have found that what we consider the smaller part of that range, sort of the up to 750, uh, usually needs kind of a different process from the larger, more complicated jobs, mainly because of the time frame. So we actually find the smaller projects, you need to have much more pre-planning. You have to know all your plumbing fixtures ahead of time, because if you don't order them before you start, they won't be there when you're done. So stuff like that has to be done ahead of time. When you're doing a project that's going to take 18 months, you don't have to know all the plumbing fixtures on day one. So that's the gist of the differences. We have a much more tight design and planning process on the smaller ones. Also, the subcontractors that we use is kind of a different set of groups. People who can do small remodels often can't handle a 20,000 square foot house, and vice versa.
Mm-hmm. Those are different things.
They kind of are. I mean, there's
Yeah.
a substantial amount of overlap, and we have subs who will work all of our size jobs, but a lot of them kind of don't.
And of the 70 people, are they like tool bag carpenters? Are they supervision? Is it a mix?
It's a mix. We do have a substantial carpentry force. We have, gosh, I think between tools on supervisors and carpenters, we must have over 30 folks who are working with their tools most of the time. And we have a group of we do have some supervisors who are tools off, who run our larger jobs. There's a set of managers who run all that. We have a large group. We have a small group of architects and designers, and a large group of folks who pull projects together. We call them project leaders. That's an amazing skill group to be able to help usually two people sort through their deepest desires and what they want to pay for now and do now. It's kind of interesting trade. And we have a handful of folks doing administration. We have our own accounting team that's amazing. They keep the trains running on time.
Yeah. No small feat when you have 70 people. I mean, that's a big deal.
We even have a handy person and warranty group, as mentioned. I think there's 9 people in that group now. So they do quite a bit of business, billable work on their own, and they handle a lot of warranty stuff.
Can you tell me a little bit about the challenges? I mean, I saw some of them when I was visiting you, but what are the challenges of working in such a busy metropolitan area like DC?
Yeah, it's interesting that you'd say that, because I'm sure there's a lot of places that are harder to work in, right? There's people here can afford to do nice work. There's a lot of decent trades folks around here. I will say that traffic has been a lot better since this pandemic started. So that's one thing I won't miss. Maybe the only thing, but yeah, it's, there's some other interesting things. Keeping up with codes in 3 jurisdictions is one of my roles, and I find it very confusing. I'm working in basically 2 codes in 3 jurisdictions. I'm supposed to know 6 codes. I have the books all sitting right here. Yeah.
I was thinking about getting dumpsters parked on the street when I was thinking about this question. I was thinking about you working in these enormous condo buildings where you have access to the project from 10 to 3 every day, and you can't make a mess, and you got to carry all your materials in through the building without damaging anything, right?
Yeah. Well, and you went to one of our sites. I mean, it can be, there are some frustrations. It's not like parking your car next to the garage and walking into the family room and nailing up some trim. So there are some issues with that, but and I find it's hard to get more than 6 hours of solid work in a condo building in an 8-hour day. But you just have to deal with that and price it appropriately. At the end of the day, that's the key. There are a fair amount. I mean, there's people around who can help you with all those issues. Just trash haulers who just bring their truck, park it at the curb, and walk all the stuff out for you. It costs more than a dumpster, but it can be done.
You also mentioned at one point too that you sometimes have difficulty getting inspectors in a timely fashion, but you can hire third-party inspectors, and if the municipality lets you, they will recognize their inspection. Is that? And can you tell me about that?
Yeah, that's unusual, huh?
Yeah.
Well, that you explained it. There are certain jurisdictions which allow third-party inspectors, and you can hire a third party to do the inspection. Now, you don't get any money back from the jurisdiction from their permit fee, but that was the default scenario in a couple of places, and several more have added that because they have jurisdictional policies not to enter occupied homes, and jurisdictional policies that someone has to see a gas line in person. You can't do that by FaceTime. So we have done, during the pandemic, we've done a ton of remote inspections that are done by video phone or whatever, but there are some places where we've had to hire third party folks to come handle this. And the ICC has certifications for inspectors, so, and for firms. So that's usually how quality is managed.
So these folks have to have some credentials from the ICC. You can't just be some former carpenter and now you're a building inspector on your own.
That's a great question. So there was a little bit of a Wild West aspect to it in one of the jurisdictions for a while, and there was a lot of spec houses that were not inspected properly. People were paying inspectors to do a bad job, and we've run into this every once in a while where we do a lot of our footing and concrete inspections are third party because you can pay them and they come at the hour that you need. But sometimes they won't show up and they'll say they were there when you weren't there, and we have to put our foot down and make them actually come out to the job site. That's happened a couple times, not very much.
That's really cool.
Yeah. Well,
I ask you oftentimes for help with the regular podcast with our listener questions because you are singularly qualified to talk about a lot of stuff. And you've had a lot of experience figuring out what went wrong with a house and how to prevent it in the future. What problems are you seeing regularly, both either on your jobs or seeing the work of past remodels? What do we get wrong all the time?
That's a great question. I think there's 1,000 things that I've seen repeatedly. So I can't give you a quick answer. And I'm definitely the kind of person who's, every tree in the forest needs a full description. It's not a forest. Anyway. No, I think, mostly it has to do with water. It is a short story for me. Most of the repeating issues that I see have to do with rain and, or rain in your shower. So I would say that's probably half the dollar damage that I see on houses, if not more. And for me, I think the root causes of that are there's a number of them. I mean, as we know, there's a lot of turnover in certain trades, particularly roofing around here. There aren't many old roofers. Roofers' bodies wear out, and it's not. It can get to be a drag after 20 years. So I know I see folks in New England who work with roofers who are older than me, and that doesn't exist around here. So there's always a new group of people who need to learn all the tricks, and that's always being done in a milieu where most of the market is trying to pay bottom dollar for something that will work for a year, and then they're done. And we're really not trying to do that. So I would say that's the main root cause of issues. And what
is it mostly flashing details, bad laps? Is it all these things? That's a great question.
That's a great question. No, I mean, most roofing materials don't fail in the middle. It's always where the connections are. Almost always. At this point, I've now seen like a few asphalt roofs fail in the middle. Very unusual. But no, it's always the connections all around. One thing that I see a lot is a waterproofed terrace that has stone or tile on it, and usually the middle is totally fine, but all the edges leak. I've seen that a dozen times. It's hard to connect to stuff. I mean, if you're trying to connect a brick veneer, you have to go through it. I don't know if people don't think about that or don't want to spend the money, or you know what I mean. There's a lot of complications. I think anytime you have two trades meeting, you're likely to have an error. Anytime you have a trade that's poorly trained, you're likely to have an error. I mean, there's a lot more ignorance I'd say there's a lot more ignorance than maliciousness, or,
Yeah.
venality, people trying to get away with stuff.
Yep.
But there's plenty of ignorance.
Do you think that it's just in some cases stuff that shouldn't be built or has bad details from the start? Is that part of it too?
Definitely. I mean, yeah, absolutely. That's one of the things that we like to think we're pretty good at, is weeding those out at the beginning. We see a lot of low slope roofs with no slope. So you start with that.
How do you make that work, Doug?
Well, as long as there's enough room, you can just add sloped foam to the top. Yeah. But when you're renovating, there's only so much room between the bottom of the second story windows and the bottom of the first floor ceiling, and you sometimes run out of room. So we try to do our best to not run out of room. But
you mentioned showers too. What happens in showers that people keep getting wrong?
I don't know how this happened, but somehow people stopped knowing how to do showers well. And this happened almost every shower that I did. No, every shower that I was a supervisor for was not done to our current standard. And, not all of those leak, probably 1 out of 5 of the showers that are done. So the way that people used to do them around here was they would just use sort of a PVC pan material, flexible pan material, and a drain, and then wrap that over the curb sort of as best they could without using the 3-dimensional patches that you can get, but which somehow were never available in the supply chain. Excuse me. So water would eventually get through the tile and the grout, particularly in the corners. When wood moves, all the corners open up. And at the curb, we had a lot of failures, and we fixed a lot of failures from other people's work. So now that there's more, it's easier to get good waterproofing materials, like the sheet materials or the fluid applied materials. When we use those on the curbs and knee walls and benches and all these vulnerable areas where it's very hard to do a pan with sheet material, then you can make it work good.
What's your go-to product for shower waterproofing?
We have 2 groups of subs. One, I actually think that many of them are perfectly fine. So I'll just start off with that. But Schluter Curdy has a big foothold in the market, and there's a Laticrete product that just looks very similar to that we've used now. One of our trades has used for many years. And then there's and that's a sheet material. Laticrete also makes a really good fluid applied product, the 925. And
is it Hydraban? Is that what that's called?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other is Hydraban sheet. Anyway, all of those seem to work fine when you do them correctly. I think the fluid applieds are harder to do well, and I've seen a lot of quality issues with those. But the people who know how to do them properly have no problem with them at all.
What do they get wrong with those fluid applied waterproofing materials, Doug?
Yeah, the 2 things are all the intersections and then the total coverage. So if
putting not enough pookie on the wall.
Yeah, and you have to, the corners have to be perfect before you start waterproofing them. They have to have mesh and thin set bridging the corner so that when the wood moves, it doesn't just rip the waterproofing. So, and then I've come onto jobs where someone didn't really know that, and they just painted over a joint in Duroc that had nothing in it, and that's not going to be watertight.
Right.
Yeah. And then there's total coverage. People think one coat is good enough, and you go back and there's a million pinholes, and they didn't know that they needed a second coat.
What is the generally the applied millage with those things? Like, what are you going for?
That's it. I don't know. I think you
should read the directions.
Some of those gauges around. I should read the directions. No, I think I don't think they call out. They usually, unlike other waterproofing products, they just say roll on a thick coat and then redo the areas that have pinholes. It's a good question.
You guys have worked on some amazing projects. I've seen some of them. What are your favorites? Are they big projects? Are they little things?
Yeah. I love seeing something different and new. Most of the time, the different and new is some gigantic project. Like we've done a bunch of these really big timber frame buildings for people to park their car collection in or have an indoor pool in and stuff like that. Maybe this is shameful, but I'm always wowed by these giant spaces. And we've done a lot of really cool finishes in small projects. We just did one recently, and I mean every square inch of it just is eye-poppingly amazing, down to the chandeliers and the hardware. So it's kind of cool to see projects like that.
Do you ever say to yourself, like, these people just need to simplify their lives?
If someone gave me $100 million, God only knows what I'd spend it on. So I try not to judge.
I think that's a good answer. What are the biggest challenges for BOWA in the coming years and decades that you see? What challenges that you guys have that you may have exclusively, or problems that remodeling and construction is going to have more generally?
I mean, obviously there seems to be a shortage of people interested in getting in. Although I think because we're fairly well known around here, and it's a really good company. We're ethical, we're competent. We seem to attract people and keep them. So that I don't have this oh my God, I can't get anything done, there's no one to do it issue yet. But who knows what the future will hold? I'm just not sure. I think things that I'm worried about are more global things. Our economy rests on a foundation of a functioning natural world, and I feel like we've been turning some dials pretty hard. It's possible that we're on the verge of really screwing that up. There's some worrisome social trends too. I don't understand how tradespeople can afford houses around here anymore, and there's a lot of folks who could be getting better opportunities around here who somehow aren't. I mean, even in very well-off jurisdictions, we have 30% dropout rate from high school. I mean, I don't know why we can't figure stuff like that out. It should be a better place for everyone than it is. And I think if it were, we'd have more customers and more competent workers. And those are the things I think about for the long term.
What do you guys, you said you don't have trouble finding good employees, but what about your subcontractors? Do you hear from them that they have difficulty hiring people?
Yeah, definitely. And particularly some of the lower skilled trades where I think the pay isn't very good. So paint, drywall, roofing labor,
what about more skilled trades like HVAC and plumbing? Do those guys say they have problems hiring too?
No, but I can't believe how much we have to pay for that stuff. Mind blown. Everything's so expensive. So I think that's the answer, is the prices just keep going up. I mean, which is good, right? That means wages are going up. That's good.
And that means that maybe we can get some tradespeople in their own homes, right? Which is what you were saying. It's a challenge in a lot of places, right?
I agree.
Do you guys have trouble having enough work? Do you have enough clients to keep 70 people employed all the time? Has that ever been a problem for the company?
I mean, the economy affects us like anyone. So it's been up and down. There's been a couple of recessions where we had to lay people off, but it's been a while. So,
did you lose work at the beginning of the pandemic outbreak? Like I heard a number of companies, but then all of a sudden it seemed to change right away.
Yeah, we still have. I think we still have a couple of projects that are officially on hold, and our small projects, our handy people just stopped allowing them into their houses for about a month. So they all scattered out to our big jobs for a while. A number of the condo buildings shut down. So that was rough, but we just kept plugging away at it.
And you've been getting new projects because people have been remodeling their homes because of their new situation?
I'm not sure that there's been a ton of people who call us up and say, due to COVID, we want X, Y, Z, but everybody wants exercise spaces and offices and stuff. It's just more of an emphasis than it ever was.
A lot of tradespeople I know have health problems related to their careers. Have you ever had a serious injury? And what do we do to make the workplace safer for people in residential construction?
I haven't had a serious injury that I know of. I mean, I had back problems for years until I discovered yoga, and that's been very helpful.
You're the second person to tell me that recently.
I lost part of my hearing. Yeah, it's. I mean, I'm sure there's other ways to stretch and strengthen your body, but that's a perfectly suitable one.
And it helped you?
Oh, a ton. Yeah, it made a complete revolution in how I felt every day.
And how long did it take?
That's a great question. I don't really remember anymore. Probably a few. I mean, I think I felt better at the end of every yoga session. So, an hour to feel a little better. But probably about a year before I just noticed I just wasn't having these, 3-day episodes where I was in a lot of pain.
Wow.
Yeah.
Maybe I got to try that, dude.
It's worth a shot. Like I said, there's other things that are probably just as good, but that's worked well for me.
What do we do to make the workplace a spot where folks don't have to be crippled in their later years, right? Like,
it's a really good question. I'm a kind of a safety gear nerd. Like, I wear safety glasses on the job site all the time. I have bifocal safety glasses now, so that's one of the keys. You got to remember that. We use good respirators. Which I think that may be the thing I did to myself that I'm not really clear on, but my lung capacity seems to be diminished. I also lost a lot of my hearing, even though I wore earplugs all the time when I was working. But I listened to, I went to some rock shows. There's a lot of reasons why you can lose your hearing. Anyway, I don't know. It's tough. It's hard for me to watch people not taking care of themselves. I just tell them, like, it's such an old man get off my lawn thing, but you're gonna wish you wore the pants with the knee pads. That's what I do now. I have the pants with the knee pads. I got the whole suite. Yeah.
Do you think young carpenters and tradespeople are better than when we were? I mean, do they take this stuff more seriously?
No way. No way. I mean, not that I see.
Do you think that we can make them do that, or is it something you just have to decide on your own?
Definitely have a mixed mind about that. It's very impressive when you go by a commercial job site and everyone's completely bedecked in safety gear. Part of me thinks that we should just do that, but it doesn't. I don't know. We give everyone stuff. Most of our people are wearing the stuff that's required. We have hard hat required job sites, and people wear their hard hats. But I think respiratory protection and hearing protection, I don't see it done to the level that I think would be better.
Yeah. What do you think we should be doing to make residential construction more inclusive to different kinds of people?
That's such a long, complicated question. There's so many answers to that. I don't know. We're in a weird place where we just don't hire people off the street mostly, like with no experience. We hire people who've been around for a while. So I'm at the wrong end of the skill growth pathway. But I know there's a lot of issues like the lack of transit and the fact that a lot of our work is in the suburbs where if you don't have a car, you can't work for us, essentially. That's a real obstacle for a lot of people who would be terrific at this job. But so I don't know. I wish I had a better answer.
Can you tell me, this is my favorite question on the whole show. Can you tell me about your own house? And do you have any lingering building science or other construction issues that you're either happily or unhappily ignoring?
What are you talking about?
Everything is fine there.
Yeah, no, there's a very long list. We've, my wife and I are kind of stalled out on the large renovation planning project that we've been trying to figure out what to do. And then it doesn't make sense to do hardly anything till you know what the big picture is. So I don't know.
So what kind of house do you live in now?
Right,
what is it like, and what would you do different to it?
What's that?
I said, what kind of house do you live in now, and what would you do differently to it?
So we live in a ranch that was built in the 50s. The things I'd like to do is a deep energy retrofit, and
But it's brick.
Yep. Yeah. No, I'm ready to do exterior insulation and change out the windows and the HVAC.
Is the family on board with that? Is that something you'd have to convince them of?
I think the family's on board with that. Yeah. 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 And I mean, that's my big plan. I did do, when I learned, when I did the BPI training, which was terrific, by far the best educational experience I've had in construction. I used a blower door, and I did attic air sealing, added insulation. I did a lot of stuff that was really mind blowing. The house is much better since I did that. It was more comfortable the next day. Even people in my family said so, not just me. So that was great. But that was just a first step.
You know as well as anybody that deep energy retrofits seldom have a realistic payback. And you said your house is already reasonably efficient. Why do it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I actually appreciate that you keep bringing this up, because someone's got to be watching out for, or asking the good questions. For me, it's because when it's 20 degrees outside, every room in our house is uncomfortable. The outside walls are, 28. I don't know what they are. They're freezing cold. I have a thermal camera sitting right here. I've never pulled it out and checked. That's really dumb.
You don't want to know, man.
No, I kind of don't. But when I lay down in bed, I can feel the cold air cascading down the wall behind me and across the bed. And I want to try all this stuff. I put solar panels on my house in 2003, partly just to see what it was all about. Mm-hmm. For some weird reason, it was one of I felt the most accomplishment of all my days. It was like an awesome day, but that's a little bit weird. I don't know why.
No, it's cool.
Anyway, the deep energy retrofit idea is kind of like that. But there's some other stuff that we'd like to do. Just rearrange the house so that there's more better space. Yeah.
Do you guys have trouble affording to live in the DC metro area? I mean, I'm sure your taxes are crazy, right? It's tough for tradespeople to live in an affluent area.
No, our taxes aren't that crazy, which is interesting. Like my folks in Vermont, their taxes on their house were about the same as ours, even though the nominal value of ours is like triple theirs. And, even though theirs was bigger. But no, it's not very affordable around here. I think that it was very, very challenging for 10 or 15 years. And somehow the flywheel just got going.
Did you guys have trouble finding a place you could afford when you were looking? I mean, is that still a problem for people you talk to?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to find an affordable house. We found a fixer-upper. That's another. Is that good or bad? Yeah. You could talk to my spouse about whether it's great that we can live in a house while we fix it up, or whether that's the bane of our existence. But I guess that's been our approach: buy a house that's, totally deficient and fix it up.
And a lot of folks have to travel quite a ways, right, to find something affordable.
That's the thing that I worry about is, there's people who live an hour from the Beltway. Who are driving in to work every day. It's just not an ideal way to live, I guess.
Yeah. What are those guys like? Do they drive a pickup truck full of tools every day from an hour away? I mean, that must.
Yeah, that's the other thing that slays me is I don't know why the truck that I owned that got the best mileage out of 6 trucks was a Toyota, an 84 Toyota. Why did the 84 Toyota get better mileage than everything since then? So yeah, there are people who drive a truck full of tools for an hour every day.
And you were driving when I was there a Escape hybrid, right? Yeah. And you were talking about you were going all electric, or maybe it was a Prius plug-in or something, but.
Yeah. So I have, I would give a very favorable report to the Escape hybrid. I averaged 37 miles per gallon for the first 100,000 miles I had it.
And you drive a lot, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm up to 223 now. Yeah, I drive like 25 or 30,000 miles a year. Most years, much less this year.
Mm.
Yeah.
I bet you missed that.
It's been great. I mean, the lack of traffic and then the Zoom meetings have really, it's hours a week I get. It's really great.
Have you found it to be a hard adjustment to talk to your clients with through a computer screen?
No. I mean, it's funny. I actually don't. I think most of my client meetings are at their houses. So
Still.
yeah. So yeah, for me. But as I mentioned, our design team thinks they work great. They like being able to fill up everyone's screen with a set of plans and circle and draw things on them and so on.
Do you think the clients are okay with it? I mean, it seems like it's what a lot of people would not imagine when they're talking about working with a designer on their home remodel or their new home.
From what I hear, it's working very well. So that's all I've heard. I think it could be people are making allowances now and they won't in a couple of years, but we'll see.
Do you think that given the choice, your design team would, continue to work remotely in the environment like they have been?
I don't know. I mean, we used to have client meetings in our office. So the clients might prefer to be at home than to drive into the office.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Wow. It's been great talking to you, Doug.
Thanks. It's nice to talk to you guys too. It's a beautiful day.
Do you want to ask or say anything to our listeners before we go?
No, just keep working at stuff, follow your passion. And I think most of the people I know who are doing that are doing very well.
I wanted to plug your trainings, which I've been to a couple and they're really good. What's the status of your, trade show trainings that you've been doing for years now?
I mean, a lot of the trade shows canceled or went remote. I did a couple of remote ones this spring, which I think went reasonably well. But I don't know because I can't see people's faces. I find it weird to do these. The National Home Performance Conference did a terrific job bringing their stuff online, and they had a man who hosted each session. So on my session, we had two presenters and the host. So there was at least a little bit of interplay between real human beings on that. I've done a couple of others where it's just essentially recording into the screen, and I'm worried that it's really missing a lot that I would be able to do when I can see how folks are reacting to things, and people can throw in their suggestions and questions. I mean, I've never done a talk where someone didn't say something that I didn't know that was terrific for everyone else to hear and for me to hear. That's one of the great reasons to do this. So that's all I'm going to say.
That's what I was going to say. Is that's what's missing is the questions and the back and forth, right? Like when I'm at those things, you get some really good questions. You're like, oh yeah, I never thought of that. Or
right, or questions and suggestions. I mean, if you do it right, if it's live and there's a chat box and there's someone who can read it while someone else is presenting, those have worked pretty well, but not all of them are done that way.
We're negotiating in this process with our, summit, which will be virtual. So my understanding is that kind of give and take will be part of the session. So we'll see how it goes. Yeah.
I've really enjoyed the building science and beer Zoom meetings, which everyone should join. Those are terrific, and there's a lot of interaction in the chat box in those.
Yeah, there's good stuff in there, totally. Like I said, it's been a pleasure talking to you, Doug. Thanks for joining us. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks to all of you for listening. Please remember to send us your comments, questions, and suggestions to fhbpodcast@taunton.com. And please like, comment, or review us however you're listening. It helps other folks find our podcast. Stay safe, everybody. Thanks for listening. Happy building. Keep craft alive.